You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show. The preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
I'm Moses Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are latest things that makes official. Welcome to thechrisvossshow.com. We've been recording podcasts for 16 years, going on 17 years, over 2,200 episodes now, and we're just going to keep making more. So, this is a good time to put your arm around that friend and say, hey, you need to download the Chris Voss Show podcast and subscribe on iTunes and all those great places. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the interwebs. Today we have an amazing young lady on the show today. We're going to be talking to her about her newest book. It came out April 10th, 2024. It's called Mindset Training, Conquer Your Mind, and the Rest Will Follow. Dr. Nekeshia Hammond joins us on the show. We'll be getting into some of the details of how you can improve the quality of your life, because that's what we kind of do that here on the Chris Voss Show. We're always talking about those, how to improve your life. People, some people write me and they go, damn it, Chris, why you always got to be talking about how to improve my life? How can I ruin it? Well, that's a different podcast. So,
different podcast.
I think that's a Joe Rogan podcast. Excuse me. Sorry. I had a cough there. I'm just kidding. He's a nice guy. Anyway, Dr. Hammond is a distinguished psychologist, international speaker, and USA Today best-selling author of the latest book aforementioned. As an award-winning speaker, she is an expert in mental health, burnout prevention, and leadership development. Oh, 3 of my favorite topics. Empowering entrepreneurs and professionals to achieve mental wellness and work-life balance. My dream that someday I'll achieve. She's the founder of Hammond Psychology Associates and the host of the popular show Mental Health Moment with Dr. Hammond, where she shares practical tips for managing stress, promoting well-being. Her leadership extends beyond her private practice as well. She served as president of Florida Psychological Association and past chair for the Ryan Reese Foundation Board of Directors. Welcome to the show, Dr. Hammond. How are you?
Thank you. I'm amazing. Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. Man, if you're president of Florida Psychological Association, isn't that whole state under your purview, the Florida man sort of thing, we see in the news?
We have a lot. Yeah, we typically have a lot going on in Florida.
A lot going on there.
Yes.
Assaults and eating faces and whatever's on the news this week. So give us .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, I'm at the best place to find me is my website, which is drnekeshiahammond.com, DRNEKESHIA Hammond.com.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's in your new book out this year?
Yeah, it's been an exciting journey with my newest book, Mindset Training, Conquer Your Mind, and the Rest Will Follow. Super excited to release this one. It's all about mindset. It's all about holistic self-care. So how do you grow physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally? Because a lot of times when it comes to our life and our growth, we get super focused on one area, but the issue is we're whole and complete beings, right? So it's really a lot of tangible strategies that you can apply in your life and different areas of your life so that you can work on thriving as an individual.
Yeah, thriving is kind of important. Last time I hear you want to be happy. It's not fun to be on the other side of being unhappy, but if you work on your mindset. So how do you define mindset? A lot of people use that terminology in your purview of the book. How do you define mindset? Like, what is that?
Yeah, great question. So really, when you think about your mindset, it's the thoughts that you have on a daily basis, how you view yourself, how you view the world. A lot of the book also talks about, because of what I've seen is a lot of people struggle sometimes with worthiness issues or self-love because of your mindset. It's a thing to be more self-aware and to know that you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be emotionally healthy. You deserve those things. And for some of us, we don't feel like we deserve them, even though we do. So it's really unraveling that when it comes to your mindset. So again, you can work on showing up powerfully for yourself and for the people around you.
Well, that's good to have. I mean, you can't share or help other people if you don't have yourself fixed first or help yourself first.
Yes.
One thing you talk about in the book is that self-care isn't selfish. I know, people who my mother does not really hospice care, but my sister's in a care center for MS and dementia, and so she's a caretaker. That's the word I was seeking.
Yeah.
I've done caretaker with my dogs in hospice care with cancer, and it really is hard. Anyone who really takes care of somebody else puts a lot of work in it, and usually they bleed themselves out in taking care of everybody else and not themselves. So,
Yeah.
give us some talk about what's self care and why is it selfish to take a break for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that we have to really unlearn. I know for myself personally as well, just growing up, well, I don't remember a lot of conversations about mental health and self care, frankly, at all, uh, because it was such a go, go, go mentality, not taking the time for yourself, getting everything done, taking care of everyone else and everything around you. But
Hmm.
the problem with that, like you said, is it really does lead to burnout, especially as you mentioned for caregivers. There's a huge issue with burnout for caregivers. Yes, you can still take care of other people, very important, of course. A lot of us have different responsibilities, whether it's our kids or our parents or whomever it is around us, but also you have to make yourself your number one priority. You have to focus on your mental health. You have to focus on your emotional wellness,
Hmm.
which is going to make you a better caretaker for the people around you. That is literally what happens, but it's hard sometimes because our brain wants to go, let's put all our energy into helping whomever it is and neglect ourselves. But that doesn't
Hmm.
work because that leads to burnout.
Definitely, definitely. And so, what made you want to write the book? Was there a proponent or something that happened, or
Yeah.
some sort of inertia that made you go, "I need to write a book on this"?
Yes. COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. When the world turned upside down, global pandemic, my speaker team at the time we were getting a lot of calls for like, how do we deal with all this stress? Like companies and organizations were like, people are
Mhm.
stressed out, understandably. At that
Mhm.
time, everyone, of course, was leaving the workplace and going into a home setting and remote work, which was stressful at the time. And we had a lot that we were dealing with in 2020. And then I start to think to myself as a writer, I'm like, okay, well, I was already getting these types of calls, and I'm like, well, what is it? How can I help? Right? How can I help more? I love writing books, and I'm like, well,
Mhm.
what does it boil down to? Like, what do we all need to really address? And to me, as a psychologist, maybe slightly biased, it's like our mindsets. Like, we really have to work on our mindsets. And I personally had some things happen in 2020 as well that if I didn't have the mindset I had, it would have been a lot more difficult than it already was. So
Mhm.
it's a matter of how do we really strengthen our mindset so we can get through not just a global pandemic, of course, but just get through the ups and downs that life brings to us.
There you go. We got a lot of great books that came out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It really did. It spawned. Everyone sat down and said, "Well, if we're stuck at home, we're going to write some books,"
Yeah.
and it gave a lot of space for that. So
Yeah.
there you go. Talk to us about some of your. I think you have 4 books. Is that correct?
Yeah.
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 Talk to us about some of the other books you have written.
Yeah. So a couple of my other books actually dealt with children's mental health. I wear a lot of hats. So one of the things that I do, I'm still in my private practice that I've had now for almost 16 years. And it was about how do you help kids to be emotionally healthy. One of my books was about how do you help children with ADHD. So a
Mm.
lot of children's mental health as well. Children and teens are definitely my heart, and my passion as well. And then, of course, his current book is a little bit broader for mindset work and helping a lot of organizations and corporations that I work with as well with leadership development and how to be strong leaders and also have the self care that you need to be productive as well.
Hmm. Yeah, it's important to have that. I mean,
Yes.
you can't share stuff unless you take care of yourself. And people tend to, you deal with burnout, right? So,
Yes.
what are some factors of people that have issues with burnout, where they're not taking care of themselves? How
Yeah.
can they identify if I'm burning out?
Yeah. It's really when it comes to burnout, burnout affects people in different ways, but
Mm.
some huge common signs, if you will, of burnout is when you're just at the point where you're like, I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel like doing the work I need to do. I no longer am excited about the leisure activities that I'm involved with. Sometimes it affects your appetite, your sleep. Like there's all these different areas where you just really feel shut down. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's physically you are shut down, or emotionally and mentally you're done. Like there's so much fatigue that's
Mhm.
there. But the good news, which is why I love this work, is that burnout is absolutely preventable when we put the right things into place. So
Mm.
instead of waiting to the point where we're falling apart, we're so distressed and we're so overwhelmed, we can work on taking care of ourselves and putting into place a preventative plan so that
Mhm.
we don't get to that point of burnout.
Yeah, you know, knowing that you burn out and taking time out. I mean, that's one thing entrepreneurs really suffer from
Oh
is
yeah.
taking time out for themselves. And
Yes.
I found I needed to start taking little getaways on the weekend. Usually,
Yeah.
you know, I avoid the holiday getaways because you know you spend half it stuck in traffic, usually on a plane or on a car, and so I try and take my holidays at different times. But I found, you know, sometimes just getting, you know, maybe doing a stay vacation, just going up into the canyons where there's maybe an Airbnb and staying overnight there, you know, something to get me out of my four walls and
Yeah.
you know, into a different frame of mind and get me out of the box, if you will. And I find that really is helpful, and it can kind of break it up, you know, like why burn yourself out all year long? You're like, I'm just gonna take 1 week vacation or 2 weeks, you know, whatever the thing is, once a year, and if I could just get there and not have a heart attack by then. And I'm like, no, just break it up into pieces, or you know,
Yeah.
take more breaks. And I think people have a hard time, especially if you're one of those burnout ADHD type people, you know, entrepreneurs. You feel kind of guilty or shame to take time off, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
kind of feel a little bit like, oh, well, I'm not being a good mother if I maybe take care of myself and eat first, you know, and spend a little private time with myself to, you know, just I've been watching these TikTok videos. And it's kind of funny. They've been doing these TikTok videos where they it's usually couples, and they're like no judging or something. It's some sort of thing where we listen and we don't judge, and they're telling each other their secrets of their relationship, which is really interesting actually, because you're like, holy shit. But one of the common things that I hear them say is they go into the bathroom not really and spend time there, not really to go in the bathroom. They're going in the bathroom to just kind of decompress, get away from the craziness of the kids in the home
Yeah.
and the partner, and just kind of have some me time.
Yeah.
And it was funny that they were all admitting that's like a secret they all do, and they all kind of know they were doing it. So like it wasn't any sort of dirty secret, you know,
Yeah.
like cheating or anything. But you know, I think people need that. They need that
Absolutely.
downtime, and it should be okay.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be
Yes.
shameful, and
It
maybe you shouldn't have to
shouldn't.
go in the bathroom to do it. Maybe there should be like, hey, if you want to go to the Starbucks and you know go sit there with your laptop and take a break, I got the kids covered, you know, that sort of thing. I don't know,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
people have weird.
It's a real thing though. I would say that's one of the number one feelings that I've heard that people have as well, guilt.
Yeah.
Which again, it's well, it goes back to your mindset though, because
Hmm.
if you feel like I am doing something wrong by taking the time for me, like you said, going up the street to the Starbucks. I love, well, anyways, not to plug Starbucks, but I that's my little treat sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it takes a minute, like have my tea from Starbucks, but taking those moments, even like sometimes we don't have time, and that's fine, especially as
Mhm.
busy entrepreneurs or corporate or wherever it is that you're working. You may not have the time to take a week long vacation, but you don't need to always take the week long vacation for self-care.
Yeah.
Self-care is things as simple as, I always say, like take a minute a day, the 60 seconds. If it has to be you taking yourself to the bathroom to get away from the hecticness of work or at home life, like that counts too. Like
Sure.
take your minute, take your 60 seconds for you. And over time, you train your brain, and it really adds up.
Yeah.
It really starts to add up. I do way more than 60 seconds now, but I
Hmm.
started that way because I told myself something that wasn't true, which was I didn't have time for self-care, which
Yeah.
is a lie. It's not true.
The other thing I found that worked really well for me was in the mornings trying to
Mm,
stay in a peace mode. So,
yes.
especially during the summer, I'll get my coffee, I'll go sit out in the sun, and it's kind of like a multifaceted thing. So, I go out there, soak up some vitamin D, start my circadian rhythms, play with my
That's
dogs. They love it
good.
when I go in the yard with them. And then I
Yeah.
usually read some meditations by Marcus Aurelius or some sort of other Stoic thing. And I try and put myself in a mindfulness setting of
Yes.
peace.
So
And
good.
and then I come to my desk and then I turn on the computer and then all hell breaks loose. You open your emails and you're like, what are all these questions? And it fires and stuff. So you're just like, well, okay. But you feel a whole lot more prepared for the day
Yes.
mentally.
Yes. That's
And
something I changed too a couple years ago because I was very guilty like you. Like, well, I don't know if you used to do this, but I used to wake up and literally 30 seconds after I woke up, I was on my cell phone. Like I was checking an email or I was looking at something and
yeah,
like I was like, and then it dawned on me, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like I cannot start my day like this. So yeah, a
yeah,
couple years back, the same thing. I'm like, okay, I do not hit the cell phone until I've done my gratitude practice. I'm doing my
yeah.
devotional. I'm doing my deep breathing. Like I need to start the day in a calmer mindset before I get to the emails and the 400 things that I need to be doing. And it is life changing to change your morning routine. It really is.
And you mentioned the gratitude stuff. I mean,
Yes.
having that, gratitude sort of moment.
Yes.
I do that in the mornings, and then usually I'm just grateful to get some coffee.
Nothing wrong with
But
that.
yeah, yeah, this is the most wonderful coffee in the world. I'm a bear in the morning, so people will die if they bother me for the first 5 hours.
5
Um,
hours.
Half a day, something like that. Don't mess with me before I haven't had my coffee. But I mean, I remember I had a girlfriend once, and she was a morning person. I'm not a morning person, and she would, as soon as she woke up, she would be bouncing out of that bed and going. Me, I'm roll back and forth a while, snooze, and crawl out of bed like a zombie crawling out of a grave, sort of thing. I am not the morning person, but I remember she was just buzzing, but she could never enjoy a quiet, peaceful moment. Like on
Mm,
Saturday, I'd be like, let's lay in bed, on Saturday and watch some TV and cuddle and, just kind of, it's Saturday or, even Sunday. And she
yeah.
couldn't do it. Like she was just, and I'm like, you're 5 kids with you, you're going to have a really hard time. But she was one of those people who was always like, my kids will never act like that when she sees other kids in the store. And I'm like, shit, I can't marry you because your kids will be like that. Anybody who says their kids won't be like that, there's a curse, I think, that gets invoked at that point. Is that true?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Different when you become a parent, for sure.
So let's get into some of the services that you offer and things you do on your
Yeah.
website. I see you do some speaking, you've got your podcast, and other work that you do.
Yeah, for sure. So spend my time really in 3 places. I like I said, mentioned before, I own Hammond Psychology and Associates. So I'm at the practice a part of the time doing psychological evaluations. The other part of the time I'm traveling, either doing different types of work in the community or speaking at different corporations and organizations about burnout prevention.
Mhm.
And then the other part of my time I spend as a writer, writing books. I'm not ready to say the title yet, but I'm going to be releasing another book here shortly, probably next month. So yeah, that's how I spend a lot of my time. In addition to yes, the mental health moment with Dr. Hammond as well. So
There you go. You even have a shop. People can buy some shirts. Keep growing,
yes, I have a
keep
merch.
going,
Yes,
keep growing.
yes, that's my motto in life.
Yeah,
Definitely my motto in
that's
life.
that's one way to continue getting up in the morning. I got to keep
Yeah,
going and keep growing because
yeah,
if you don't keep growing and going, life universe kind of has a place they find for you, and it's
yeah,
in a cemetery. So
yeah.
might as well just keep never. What's that old line? Do not go into the good night lightly, something like that. I'm not a poet, folks. I think you know that after 60 years. I see some free self-care resources you have on your website. Tell us about some of that.
Yeah, so I put together also some digital toolkits
Mhm.
for when it comes to self-care for parents, or there's a teacher's guide, there's information about ADHD, depression, anxiety. So just different toolkits, because a lot of times I found working in the public education space that I work in, that
Mhm.
there's so much heartache and pain that can be prevented if
Mm.
only people had the information, which is it's difficult for us being in the mental health field sometimes because we're trying our best to just get out as much information as we can. So yeah, so one of my gifts to the community is I put together some digital toolkits that are free on my website as well.
Awesome. Tips to manage depression for youth. Tips to manage anxiety for youth. I'm still waiting for my dad to come back with the milk from the store. Let's see. No, I'm just teasing. But that's a joke. Gaming joke. Gaming jokes are now callback on the Chris Voss Show. Parent self-care toolkit. That's probably really important. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, one thing I always hear from moms is, and I think we were guilty of doing this to our mom. It was like mom, 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 mom. I've heard
Yeah.
moms like I go in the bathroom and they've got their fingers in the door, they're banging on the
Yes.
door. I can't get a moment to myself.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's the same way. Says the same thing. My hands are in the. I don't know what that means. Anyway, let's see. Self-care tips for teachers. That's a big deal. My mom was a teacher for 20,
Oh,
25
nice.
years.
Nice.
And my sister, and yeah, that was hard. That's a lot of hard work, and
It
they were
is.
doubling her class sizes all the time.
Wow.
It was like, I mean, I think they doubled their classes so big they couldn't fit him in the room. I don't know. That's just a joke. Tips to manage ADHD for youth. I might want to pick that one up.
Yeah.
I had my ADHD down, and then with old age, everything kind of slowed down. So I got it under control, and then I started testosterone replacement therapy a year ago, and man, it all came back.
Interesting.
Squirrel. Yeah, it was really
Interesting.
interesting. I had everything. I had all that anxiety, all that ADHD down. I was like, calm, and now I'm
Wow.
like, I just don't really give a shit because I'm old and I don't care anymore. And then the testosterone kicked in, and
Wow.
whoa, it's back.
Wow.
So squirrel. Self-care tips for youth toolkit and self-esteem for youth. A lot of these seem geared towards youth. Do you work with a lot of people in their youth?
Yeah. So when I'm at the practice, I do work with youth. Well, I work with all ages, but also youth. When I
Mhm.
do evaluations for ADHD, learning disabilities, depression, anxiety, those types of evaluations. So yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Learning disabilities. You ever been on Twitter? there's a whole
S-
client base there you can tap
Social
of
media
learning
is
disabilities.
an interesting place.
Do you think social media is making people more depressive? We're talking about youth, and I know a lot of them, especially young girls, are getting depressed. They see
Yeah.
the Instagram and
Yes.
some of these, they see some of this this fakeness about all of social media. There's
Oh,
influencers are fake. There's
so fake.
filters that make every woman look like a supermodel, and
Yes.
they get a lot of body dysmorphia and stuff
Oh
and things
yeah.
like that. So,
Oh, for sure.
what do you think about some of that stuff? Is it?
Yeah, and actually, well, there's been many studies about how it affects youth.
Mhm.
It's hard because I love social media a lot. I think there's a lot of good that we can do, especially, well, like right now, right? Like spreading information. I love it
Mhm.
for that purpose, positive information
Mhm.
and reputable information. But the downside, of course, especially for teens, like you said, is that comparison effect where they are on there. They are like, everybody's perfect. Everyone has millions of dollars. Everyone's an influencer, which we know is not true. Everyone has a perfect life. Definitely not true. So it's a lot of education, especially for our youth, that
Mhm.
that is not the reality that you're seeing. When you see that 20, even for adults, I mean, we do that too. When you see that 20-second video out of someone's day, you literally don't know what their 24 hours was about. Like we
Yeah.
make assumptions, like we see 20 seconds, we're like, oh, they have a perfect life. No, they don't. They don't. But we think that way because that's what we see. We're seeing these clips of information and we think we know everything
Mhm.
that's happening, which is not the case. But it's even harder when you're developing and you're in identity crisis and all those sorts of things as a teenager anyway.
Mhm.
So it is difficult, yes, for a lot of teens for sure.
I talk about how toxic the internet is and how it's kind of become a Pandora's box. When it
Oh
first
yeah.
came out, we were all like, "Kumbaya! It's bringing the one world together, and we're all gonna get along." And you started seeing the fall of evil dictators and sort of thing. And it seemed like, oh, this is going to unite us. And of course, people thought that if you give more information to people, it will make them smarter. And instead, all the village idiots moved out of the town square and found their friends.
Yeah, it's
Um,
scary. Some of the
yeah,
comments are very scary. Very
yeah.
scary.
And I, as an older person, I've been on YouTube for about 20 years, so I'm used to be
Nice.
calling, all sorts of names and everything else. I mean, but at least I get paid for it. I'm like, thanks. Okay, they're like, you're fat. I'm like, Oh, wow. Thank you. You're a prophet. How did you foresee that I'm fat and tell me something I don't already know? And my scale tells me every morning. It actually does say that you're fat.
It does not.
It's one of
It
those.
does not.
It's an
It
Alexa
does
based.
not.
It's an Alexa based thing.
It
She
does
has
not.
issues with me, but it even screams in pain. It's like you're stepping on me,
No, it
and I'm like, you're a
doesn't.
scale. I am
No, it doesn't.
just gonna do a stand up bit here on scales, I guess. But I someone pointed out to me about a month or two ago, and it kind of hit me like a freight train. And they're like, Chris, you talk about some of the issues that people have on social media and depression and all these things. But imagine if you're a young boy or young
Oh,
girl
yeah.
and you don't have any sort of callous. You're
No.
not used to people, throwing ugly at you, and you're not used to, all the things that are out there. I mean, you got people spewing hate on so many
Yes.
different levels and variations, and I'm like, geez, I never really thought about that. I mean, that can really fuck you up. I mean, you and I are likely come of the age where back then you didn't have social media.
No.
You were lucky if you get somebody. You leave a voice. I remember when voicemail came around. It was the thing.
Yeah.
It's like you have voicemail now. I mean, back then you just call people and you get a busy signal. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm calling back, and so a lot of technology's changed, but we were able to grow up and develop our esteem and our egos
Yeah.
without all that crap. And so I can't imagine just growing up in that world, but that's why our Generation X was the greatest generation. Anyway, I just want to point that out. So any of your thoughts on any of that I just was rambling
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. No, it's a real thing, like you said. And you're absolutely right. It is unfortunate when it comes to cyberbullying, for example. It's 24/7, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of kids, which I highly don't recommend, as an aside, sleep with cell phones in their room. They're on their phone half the night or throughout the night. People are, like you said, spewing the hate. It's so much to take in. You have, well, hopefully they're also focusing on school and other things that are important to them. But in addition to that, there's this extra added layer of the cyberbullying, which is a huge issue as you're trying to develop and understand who you are as a person and your sense of self. So all of that is a lot to deal with. Which is why it's important, and I'm a huge advocate for mentors in the community. It's not necessarily just the people in their households, but it's also the community. We have to rally together as a community and help our youth and make sure that we're advocating for them, because it is a different world that they're living in. Like you said, when for us it was school, maybe someone said something mean, you went home, that's it. No,
Yeah.
it's not like that anymore. It's
Yeah.
24/7.
Or you
They
punch
have
them
the
in the face
phones,
on the
they have the
playground.
internet. Yeah, it's 24/7.
You could settle. You could settle down on the playground. That's what you would do. You'd be like,
Yeah.
you call me what? Maybe there
That's
needs
it.
to be like a virtual punch in the face you can do to people. No, we don't advocate violence on the show.
No,
Folks. We just do
we're
the
not.
jokes.
Yeah,
Just do
no.
the jokes. See a psychologist if you need help there.
No
Um,
violence.
so as we go out, give people your .coms. Tell people where they can reach out to you and find out more about utilizing your services, ordering books, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So the best place is my website. It's drnekeshiahammond.com, DRNEKESHIA Hammond.com.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, Doc, for coming to the show. We really appreciate it. Hey, does this look infected? No, I'm just kidding. That's my favorite doctor joke. I do at parties.
No, no.
If I bump into doctors out in the wild or at parties or something, I'll be like, hey, can I show you some? I think it's infected. And they look at me like, are you serious? Like now?
Oh,
I'm at a party.
no,
Anyway,
no,
I'm just kidding.
no.
This is my favorite doctor joke. Anyway, thank you for coming to the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
There you go. And thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one, the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. And thanks to LaShawn Huntley. My apologies if I pronounced that wrong. Thanks for sharing this important information. We certainly appreciate the comment. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.